to ask the Pope to say, yeah, my predecessor was wrong, sorry. That was very hard to swallow for a Pope. But the political situation itself made it very, very difficult. Isabella and Ferdinand had another daughter and a little son, a boy who died. Their other daughter was Joan. Joan, who came to be known later in history as Joan the Mad. And Joan the Mad married Philip the Handsome of the Netherlands, the king of the Netherlands. Back then, kings and queens had those nicknames. And so they married, and so that one of their daughters was married to Philip the Handsome of the Netherlands, and the other one was married to Henry VIII of England. John the Mad and Philip the Handsome had a boy, Charles. And John the Mad was kind of mad. She was a very jealous woman, and she made big scenes, and so she was taken to be really out of her mind. And anyway, and so when Isabella died, this is what happened. Supposedly, her daughter was the heir to the throne of Castile, not her husband. Okay, her husband was the king of Aragon, and they had kept the two kingdoms separate. Their children could inherit both kingdoms, but when she died, her daughter, Joan, was to be the heir to the throne of Castile. But her husband claimed that her wife, Joan, his wife, was crazy. She was not in her right mind, and so he came to Castile to claim the crown himself. Now Ferdinand didn't like him. He didn't like Philip at all, and it so happened that Philip, during his visit to Castile, mysteriously died. Okay? So he couldn't claim the throne. Now the only claimant after Joan was their son, Charles. Joan came to Spain. There was some kind of a revolution trying to get her to become the queen and not her son, Charles. But she was really, she was pretty much a prisoner queen. She was put in a castle and treated as a queen, but as a crazy queen, and so kept as a prisoner queen, pretty much, while her son, Charles, claimed the throne to both Castile and later, when Ferdinand died, to Aragon as well. Right? Now, who was Charles in relation to Catherine? Her nephew? Her nephew. Catherine was his aunt, right? Now, Charles had inherited the whole of Spain, the two kingdoms, and back then, Aragon had possessions in Italy, the whole southern part of Italy, chunks of northern Italy, in this section in France, and the Netherlands, of course. All of this belonged to the Netherlands. And not only that, he had inherited the New World, the Americas. The New World was being conquered back then. Remember, 1492, with Ferdinand and Isabella. Here we are in the 1520s, 1530s. That's the time when the Anglican Reformation is taking place, the Church of England, Henry VIII. By that time, Charles was already the king of all of this in Europe and the Americas. Guess what? France felt threatened by Spanish power because it surrounded it pretty much all over. The Pope had been conspiring with the King of France against the Emperor Charles. Not only that, I should say, all of these German kingdoms were separate principalities ruled by princes, but they named an emperor to rule over all of them. And they had this emperor had the symbolic name of the Holy Roman Emperor. It's kind of a symbolic continuation of the Roman Empire, okay? And guess what? Charles was made the Holy Roman Emperor. So he was not only the king by his own right of Spain and the Netherlands and all these sections of Italy, he was made also the emperor of all of Germany. So France was fully surrounded by Spanish power, and it felt in danger. And the Pope had been conspiring with the King of France against Charles. And Charles got word of it. He was upset, and he pretty much taught the Pope a lesson. The city of Rome was sacked, and the Pope was really humiliated. And that's a long story. I don't need to get into that. But the Pope knew he shouldn't enrage the emperor. It was not the time to upset the emperor. Plus, the Protestant Reformation was taking place here, in Switzerland, and Germany. And these were territories under the emperor's control. Do you think the Pope was in a position to grant the king of this little kingdom a divorce from the emperor's aunt and humiliate the emperor in that manner? Absolutely not. There's no chances whatsoever that Henry VIII could get away with that. That would have humiliated the emperor to an unspeakable degree, and the Pope would have somehow paid for it. The Pope needed the emperor desperately to stop the Reformation, first of all, here, because that was breaking up the church into different sections, groups. And he just couldn't afford upsetting the emperor by granting the divorce. Okay? So in that situation, Henry VIII could not get what he wanted from the Pope, and he decided to just go ahead and break up from Rome. So by 1534, with the so-called Act of Supremacy, he declared the Church of England to be independent from papal power, papal authority. And 1534, the Act of Supremacy, the Church of England becomes separate from Rome, independent from papal authority. So the ultimate religious authority in the church in England is the monarch, the king. Chris, do you like Bloody Marys? Yes, you do? Mary was the daughter, as I said, of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. Now, Catherine was kept pretty much as a prisoner queen. She was respected. She was not beheaded like some of the other women that Henry VIII married after he divorced Catherine, with the permission of the new church hierarchy in England. She was respected, but kept pretty much prisoner in a castle, as a queen, really. And I think this is really fascinating. There's never anything like this before in history. And it would make a great movie, really, if you think of it. Both Catherine in England and her sister, Joan, in Castile, were being kept as prisoner queens. Truly amazing, isn't it? The two of them were queens, the Queen of England, Queen of Castile, in castles, treated as queens, but prisoner queens, who couldn't leave the castle, couldn't have their authority expressed beyond the walls of the castle.
Why was Catherine was captivated? I mean, Joan was, I guess, psycho. That's why she was put as in prison. But why was Catherine like that too?
Catherine was not decapitated.
Or
that's what I'm saying. Catherine was respected. She was.
So why was she still being how come she had no authority or anything like that?
Well, because the king divorced her, so he just sent her into a castle, and that was it. Of course, I don't think Henry VIII would have dared to decapitate Catherine. That would have, that would have caused the war. It would have caused the emperor to invade England if he had done that, I suppose. So that didn't happen. She was kept prisoner with all honors and everything, but prisoner in a castle. And her sister also prisoner in Spain when she was the actual Queen of Castile. Now, the Church of England today is divided, so to say, between the higher church and the lower church. And the lower church is more Protestant-like, and it follows more of the Protestant line of thinking, while the higher Anglican church, the high church, resembles more Catholicism, and it follows Catholic-like rituals and vestments and church offices and all this. Henry VIII was not a Protestant-minded king. In fact, before his split from Rome, he had published a book in defense of the Pope against the Protestants, which granted him a special honor from the Pope, Defender of the Faith, a special title from the Pope, Defender of the Faith, because of his this tract defending the Pope's authority. So when the split took place, the separation from Rome, he didn't change the church into a Protestant-like kind of church, but it remained pretty much like Catholicism to a large extent, definitely as far as the beliefs. Although he dissolved the monasteries, but the theology remained pretty much the same as Catholicism. And then when Henry VIII died, little Prince Edward came to the throne, but he died soon, and the next in line was, guess who? Mary. Now, Mary had been raised close to her mother, and she remained a Catholic, and she hated everything her father had done and everything her father had done to her mother. So when she became queen, the very first thing he did was to marry the King of Spain, Charles's son, Philip, who was her cousin. But, it could be done with a special permission from the Pope. So as to hand England to Spain, to the empire. If they had had a child, that child would have been the ruler of England and Spain and all of the empire. Okay, and she burned at the stake as many of her father's followers as she could. That's why she came to be known Bloody Mary. From what I read, she burned at the stake between 200 and 300 people, probably. But then what happened was that she died too soon. She died within 5 years. Philip went to England, but they couldn't have a son. She was 35, and she was too sickly, and they couldn't procreate. And so when she died, then you have Elizabeth coming to the throne, and Elizabeth was very Protestant-minded, and so she turned England back again to Protestantism and away from Catholicism. And then after that, Philip II tried to invade England with a great armada, but it failed, and the rest is history. We're not so concerned with that. Okay, have any questions about the differences between Protestantism and Catholicism, Christian theology, or any other related issue? Any questions? Okay, well then get ready for our next session on Max Weber and the Protestant ethic.